Meeting to order for the July 14th to 2021 EMAC working group meeting. You want to do roll call?
Sure. Madam Chair DeWitt,
Here.
Vice Chair Johnston,
Here.
Member Budinger,
Here.
Member Anaya,
Here.
Member James is absent, Member Greenberg,
Here.
Member Pastor.
Yeah. Thank you. SIMPO complies with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, related non-discrimination statutes and regulations in all programs and activities. Members of the public may view the SIMPO Title VI plan and submit a self-identification survey by accessing the SIMPO website. Reminder to those attending the meeting, please keep your line on mute until you wish to speak. Voting will take place by roll call. This meeting is available for public viewing on the SIMPO YouTube page too. So does anybody have any announcements or updates?
I'm here representing.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have Dan Cherry here. He's from the TAC, the SIMPO TAC board. We are going to try to have a representative from the TAC at all our meetings so that you guys know that we are being heard and they're here to help give input too.
Welcome.
Thanks. I think.
No, you've been.
We'll try and go easy on
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so Elizabeth, do you have anything?
So nothing too earth shattering, just we're still making progress on the Game Management Unit 18A Habitat Initiative. We're still making progress with that each day. So things have had to slow down a little bit with fire season and all of the drought that's going on. But other than that, we did get a new regional supervisor here in Region 3, Karen Klama. She is on the meeting today. I don't know, she may be on the other side of it, but I just wanted to introduce her. And if you need her contact information, I will be more than happy to get that for you. And she's been on with us almost a month now. And so it's good to have a new face and to make changes as we move forward with this. So other than that, that's the only thing I can think of right now.
Thank you. Okay, no one else? All right. So SIMPO updates. Ben?
Thank you. So you guys stole my thunder in a good way, though. Just wanted to appreciate Dan for joining us as the TAC liaison. Moving forward, it's my hope Dan and I need to visit with the TAC formally and ask, I guess the two of us basically came up with this idea, but we want to try and formalize it moving forward, that there is a TAC member presence in these meetings so that, again, this particular group provides an advisory capacity to the TAC. And kind of my understanding from our last meeting and just ongoing conversations, again, it's important that you all are being heard in your efforts, which we applaud and appreciate. And we think this is one additional way to increase communications, your awareness as to what's happening. So obviously you have staff present, but I do think having Dan present, and hopefully it'll be him, but whatever the TAC decides as a whole, just that additional communication will be of great value. So with that said, thanks for being here today, Dan, and see what damage you and I can do together in a good way.
Sure we can do plenty.
In a good way, of course. And that's
You want
only
damage, you get enormous on some of these.
that's the only simple update I have at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just make a comment that at previous, when we've had everyone together, the executive, the TAC and EMAC, I just want to say that Dan has always been a supporter of the environmental concerns. So we're very glad that you were the one selected to be here.
It's
I
almost
think
like,
I got volunteered.
yeah, it's almost like Vinny had a little strategy when he made the ask. Maybe.
He called me up and he's like, have I got a great idea for you?
Well, it is a great idea.
Well, thank you for having me.
And so next month we have the board retreat, and we want to go over the agenda and what we're hoping to get out of it.
Thanks, Tammy. So I guess kind of a little bit behind the scenes and kind of a bit overview, and then I'll try and drill down into the EMAC connection here. So again, I'm on the job I'm back, but still relatively new back. only a few months into it. And traditionally, we've been doing these retreats as you all have participated in the past. But the retreats in the past have been more of a, at the beginning of the year, as SIMPO looks to the year and cover a fairly broad range of the topics of, reminder of our mission and are we achieving it and things we want to do. And it covers a very broad range. I will say, in this particular retreat, that's not the case. It's a very much more narrowed focus. And the major reason for it is what I'm seeing as I come back is as I look at our transportation improvement program for the next 5 years, our major planning projects. And I'll take blame when I was here before and just over the years, and there's probably no one to blame in particular, but we've had these major projects that over the years, they were down the road and they were easy catch-all projects. We know they're priority projects, but what I've noticed has happened is we would end up having some additional dollars and put it into a project and some additional dollars and put it, and it's just kind of fluctuated. So not that those projects won't remain our main focus, but what's happened is we need to drill down and really understand more of the specifics. And that's my biggest reason for wanting to bring the executive board and the TAC together. I will say, in all transparency and honesty, I was trying to figure out with respect to the EMAC group, where you all would be able to fit in there, because clearly, again, in your capacity providing the ecosystem mitigation advice to the TAC, completely respect that, but with such a narrow scope, I was trying to figure out, is this the best use of everyone's time and how we communicate with each other? Long story short, we've extended an invitation to you all. What I will say is my greatest desire and hope for that day is what I can get out of that from the executive board and the TAC is to specifically look at the next 5 years. I do not expect in this retreat for any project to be removed off the table. It's, and I'm going to oversimplify it because when you're there, you'll see it's not as simple, but it's going to be much more of a matter of reordering projects. So it's not a matter of, will we do Great Western Extension or not? I fully expect that to be a planning project of SIMPO. But my question to Dan, the rest of the TAC members and the board is, when are we doing it? And specifically, what is SIMPO doing? So right now, just to give you a highlight, we're looking at, planning work for the Sundog Connector, which will again connect Prescott to Prescott Valley from the new jail into the beginning part of Prescott Valley. It would somewhat parallel with 69, would be a brand new road. The other project, again, brand new road, is Great Western that would connect Prescott Valley with the town of Chino Valley, basically 89A out to 89. Those are two major significant brand new roads. Those are priority roads that our 25-year transportation plan has reviewed with your input, the TAC, the public, the elected officials. So once again, I do not expect this discussion to say from anyone, I mean, they can say it, but I don't expect the group to agree, we're going to remove a project. That's not what this discussion's about. This project or this discussion is about when do we do the project and what are we doing? So with that said, to the EMAC group, we want your full engagement when those projects happen. At this point, we're tentatively looking that Sundog Connector would be the first year, but again, that's part of this discussion. If we didn't have this discussion, what I have on the books right now is Great Western. As staff evaluates it, looks at it, we're trying to exchange it and swap it, and I'll explain more of those reasons why. One of them is the dollar amount to deliver a road. A Sundog Connector's $30 million. Great Western is well over $200 million. Yavapai County studied it 10 years ago, the Great Western, and just the study alone was $1 million. So I invite you to fully participate in those individual projects. But for the retreat itself, I would really encourage and ask to look for a real effective communication. If there's something that the EMAC needs to express, I think we have some real opportunities through your chair, through a liaison. Again, I think and I'm not projecting that the EMAC would say, take this project off the table, but if you were, again, that's not necessarily the discussion we're looking at. The projects will happen. What are we going to study and when are we going to study it is the biggest thing. Sundog Connector, Great Western, we're going to do more work on State Route 69 and more work on State Route 89. Those are our major planning projects for the next 5 years. Yes, JD.
I just, and I don't know how appropriate it is for me to ask this question, but I'll ask it anyway. With the encouragement of infrastructure funds coming from this new administration and the fact that work has been delayed, is there any chance that we could revisit part of the wildlife crossing for State Route 69?
I would say my initial reaction to your question is yes, in the sense that we want to study more of what we need to do with 69. So to me, I don't know why that wouldn't fall under consideration with, as we look to what parts do we need to continue to widen. We're looking at safety and capacity. So
if I may, I think you're talking about specifically the
The
Prescott
underpass.
Lakes Parkway to
Yeah.
Gaffney's. So bringing everybody up to speed on that, there has been a change to the IGA with that project. They ran over on costs with regards to design, had some right-of-way costs, some utility, I think some was utility costs associated with it. And so the city of Prescott, the county, and SIMPO all kicked in $100,000+, about $350,000 total, if I'm not mistaken. And in order to complete that design and get that out to bid pretty soon, is my understanding. This fall is what they've been talking about. Can you confirm that?
I just got the final draft of the design to review. And so I'm going to be looking for things to protect wildlife, like signage, lighting, striping, that kind of stuff.
So
Because
kind
there's
of,
no money right now for an underpass.
So I mean,
Complete
I
underpass.
think what you're getting at is there may be some federal influx of infrastructure dollars. Would those be eligible for adding some kind of wildlife improvement with an underpass at that site? And I suspect, as the message was relayed before, that you're too late in the process here with design. I mean, if they're going to do that, design has to go all the way back to square one in a lot of respects, and I don't think ADOT is going to be amenable to that.
I had to at least ask.
Yeah, no, I'm not up in that decision-making board. But yeah, no, the money has been allocated. It's set. And if we mess with the funds, they get cut off permanently.
They may get
So we
pulled
don't
off
want
the
that
list.
either. So, but I think this brings up a moment that we can talk about that I think EMAC is interested in, and that is being involved in the projects far enough ahead of time so we can get that money.
Right.
Either grants or outright, this is a wildlife corridor, we need to protect it. How's that going to happen for project A? How's that going to happen for project B? That kind of stuff. So we mostly want to be made aware way ahead of time, because that's kind of where the environmental stuff and the wildlife stuff meets, is way out, you know, with these conceptual design reports and all that kind of stuff. There's a preliminary environmental review, and that's got to be studied. You got to have people out in the field. That takes a long time. all that money has to be appropriated ahead of time. for the project. So I think that's where we want to be with the EMAC.
I think that's really an important message, and I want to be clear with the group. Again, there is, at this point, there is no approved project. So this is the earliest that I'm aware of. Again, looking at the next 5 years, these are projects that will happen. What will come out of the retreat is what is project one. Again, if we don't change it, it's Great Western, so you all have a heads up on that. I want to change it. I'm advocating again for Sundog Connector. Either way, to Chuck's point, you know, you are in ground zero, if that's the right name, to start your preparations to know the corridor that we're looking at. There's already existing studies that you all can start to look at and know at least either one of those that start to gain information on it. And again, what the MPO is looking to do is to update much of the work that's been done and then any additional work that could be done.
There are two things on that. And the first one is that I would like this committee to somehow do some public outreach in terms of educating the community, because we've been in operation now 2-3 years. And from the community's perspective, we haven't done anything, we have no value because and most people don't realize the lead-in time that you guys just described for ADOT projects. They would have thought that in that amount of time, we would have had something very concrete that we could have shown for our existence. So I think part is the education thing. And Guy, did I just forget the second thing? Oh, I think I did. So
Well,
often.
that's why we wanted everybody, I talked Vinny into extending for the retreat, to extending it to the invitation to the EMAC. So you guys hear the conversation and what they want to do as priorities. That way we know, and we're part of it as the EMAC, and going forward, we know what we're studying, because they're going to give us a direction. This is what we want you to study.
I understand that fully, and I've always understood
Yeah.
that. But the thing is that today we have actually no one from the public here. That's unusual. And feedback that I have gotten from the community is that you guys aren't doing anything. So, and we all sitting in this room understand why, but I think that if we want to get support and input from the community is in our efforts, and it also would be good PR for ADOT. You know, many of them think, oh, ADOT just didn't want to have any efforts made towards the wildlife. But if they really understood, and it wouldn't take much, you know, I don't know, someone being on a radio station, maybe an article that would be in the newspaper, just so that the people in the communities know why it takes so long, because they don't understand that at all. So that just is one thing. I think it's important, and I would like to see EMAC as a committee kind of take that on as part of our education role.
Well, and that's something that will have to be brought up, I believe, to the TAC and to the board, if it's something
Yeah.
they would allow us to do.
Well, and
Direct some funding to, you know, support that or something like that.
Yeah.
And JD, maybe since you brought it up and you volunteered.
she's just like Dan. Well,
Maybe you could come up with like some bullet points for public relations, education. Nothing real difficult, just a few bullet points that we can take to the TAC and to the SIBO retreat.
Well, not to the retreat. That's not going to be where that's going to
Oh,
be
okay.
separate.
Okay, after.
Yeah.
The retreat.
Yeah,
but
and-
just something to work on, because I think
Right.
that part of our role in it is, you know, it's a global thing. And I think educating the community and having them be aware of what our obstacles are, what our challenges are, and just understanding the snail pace with which any project, governmental project, and especially one that, you know, I learned a lot in terms of if you get federal funds in, then it's 3 times the work and the length of time. So I just want other people to understand that, so that they just don't think we're twiddling our thumbs and not doing anything.
Well, and I think our biggest bonus to date is getting something in the 2045 transportation plan. That is huge because that sets up the guidelines for us to start talking about all this kind of stuff. And that's key in this government type exercise that we go through, of bringing in the public and involving all the municipalities and all that kind of stuff, to have a guideline like that. So that's something we really need to start advocating, is that we've got an entire plan in the transportation plan, which has never showed up before, except maybe a paragraph saying,
Exactly.
we'll go out and pet them and take your kids out and look at them.
So the
Oh, I-
the goal of the retreat is that we are being in the direction of the projects we will be working on.
Yeah,
Yes.
and maybe I was out of order in terms of bringing it up now, because I don't see that as part of the project. I do remember the other thing I was bringing up. I saw one man, and Elizabeth, you may be the one who would know about this. And he was a representative from Game and Fish. And I think that it was after one of the fires, and he was giving some sort of speech. But I'd like to know if Game and Fish, my perception from what he said was that they were planning to remove all of the pronghorn.
Yeah, the city council was told that too.
No, that is a rumor. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
That is a rumor that has, it's not true. It's grown legs and it's become this huge blown out of proportion thing. Currently right now, Game and Fish does not have any plans to remove any pronghorn within the Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, any of those areas right now.
So we had a representative from Game and Fish at a city council meeting last month or so, and then said something totally opposite. Who was
Who was
hired-
that?
and I
Maybe
can't-
that's where I saw it
I
was,
can't
was,
remember.
it started with a G.
Oh, it's,
he was like at the state level.
It was,
He's a Commissioner Geiler.
yeah. it's not
Geiler
Geiler, yeah.
was his name, yes.
No, unfortunately, at this time, Region 3 and all other research branch and everything else, we do not have any plans to remove pronghorn
Okay.
from that area.
Oh, that's wonderful news.
So as of right now, everything is going to stay where it's at. We're looking at potentially funding sources and studies, but right now, no, there are no plans to remove pronghorn because we do not actually have anywhere within the state to put them, if that makes sense, because we're still doing, like in 18A, we're doing habitat work right now. And so if you don't have the habitat work completed and done, you can't move and put those pronghorn there and expect that population to flourish. So right now the populations are doing good as far as, unfortunately with the drought, there's not a lot of growth going on, but like I said, no, the rumor unfortunately has grown legs and has become this huge blown out of proportion thing. But yeah, there are no plans to remove pronghorn right now.
Since you brought up the drought, are our pronghorn part of the hauling water project?
So
There's-
all across the state, we're hauling water. We've got tanks that we're keeping full, and we're trying not to let anything go dry because, as y'all know, dry tanks equals, mortality. So right now, to my knowledge, we have not let anything go dry across the state, and we're keeping everything full with water hauls via volunteers, within the department. And so we're just really keeping a track on that.
Good, and I'd just like to tell everyone you can donate to a Game and Fish for the hauling water project. And it, like she said, it's throughout the state, and it really is critical that we make sure that they have water.
So let me-
And
Let's get back, we need to kind of get back on the.
yeah, I was gonna say, let's get back to.
And let me wrap this up. I want to be really clear. Again, you have my full support. I think the work that you do, the passion is needed. You have my full support. My biggest role, I think, and I want you to hear me clear, is to be effective. How do we be effective? How are you as a group effective? How do I support you? The retreat itself, as you would imagine, for my role to facilitate, again, the room, and you've been in there before with our elected officials, our technical staff, and to try and present, juggle, and facilitate that. Bottom line is, I just want the day to be effective. So I absolutely welcome and encourage all of your comments today at this meeting, between the meeting and the retreat. As Tammy noted, though, for the retreat, again, I have a very narrow agenda, narrow focus, what I'm trying to achieve. I want your message to be extremely effective. So communicate what you need here today. If something between now and the retreat, do so. Come to the retreat, as Tammy said, to please, as best you can, observe what's taking place. And, you know, you again have an opportunity through your chair, through a liaison, if there is a point that really needs to be made. But I do want to caution the group that it's not a dramatic conversation of we're just not going to do one of these projects, but how are we going to do the project? With that said, you all are aware of the projects, and you have the biggest head start that I know to give you. It's just a matter, we'll finalize it on that day when we're going to do those projects. So I just want to be clear on that.
Could we get a map
Yes.
of simple boundaries that
Yes.
shows those
Yeah.
projects, or will that be delivered at the?
No, you can, we'll get that to you ahead of time. And
Okay.
actually, I'm gonna put this to Daniel in the sense that both of those, Sundog, if you don't have access to the materials, I know the county website has the Great Western Plan already. So you can look at $1 million study that has more maps than you know what to do with and more information than you know what to do with. JD or anyone, if you need help printing anything, come to us. We're happy to help.
Thank you.
But those studies exist, and we have the Sundog connector on our website.
On our
Or,
website or?
Is that para study?
Mhm,
Right.
yes.
yeah.
So if you're looking for the Great Western one, if you go to the Public Works website. Works. There's Google Yavapai County Public Works, and across the top, we have a kind of a header that has things, and there is a reports section. And under reports, in the header section is the Great Western Feasibility, Great Western Corridor Feasibility Study. That includes executive summary, the whole study, and the appendices, which were voluminous, I will tell you. So, yeah.
And the Sundog one, we can find out.
Sundog.
We can send them both out to the group. It'll be
Okay.
easier that way.
Yeah,
All right, Daniel.
Honestly,
send
it
them
might,
out.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have the capability of posting it on Simpo, but that might be
Yeah,
of
do
value,
that as well.
especially if it's gonna be in the discussion.
We'll put it on our website, but in the meantime, Daniel will send it to the EMAC group. If for whatever reason you need help printing stuff, come to us. Again, I'm telling the group, these projects are gonna happen, so get a jump start on it, start looking at it. And
And if I may, certainly the Great Western one, I mean, that crosses right through prime pronghorn habitat. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that that will need to have some provisions made for migration of animals when that comes about. There's just, it's gonna, by the time that gets built, this will be years down the road from now, and that sort of thing will, you know, be even more in the forefront of people's minds, in my opinion. I'm not sure, you know, the Sundog kind of goes over the southern haunch of Glassford Hill. You know, it is, I think it goes across some state land up there, if I'm not mistaken. It wouldn't surprise me if that's a migration area for pronghorn, but I honestly don't know.
I think there used to be a Glassford Hill herd there,
Yeah.
but I think that it's been reduced significantly because of all the development.
Okay.
But that area is in the Arizona Game and Fish and ADOT linkages design report. As
So, you know, if
Wildlife corridor.
there's opportunity to, you know, have an underpass or something like that as part of it. You know, depending on what our next step is, there's obviously been a FARA study that's been done already. Maybe our next step is some kind of DCR that establishes a cost estimate or something like that, similar to what we've done on the roundabout at 69 and 169 and other types of projects. Get some 15% level plans and a cost estimate, and then the, you know, the city, the town, and the county have something to run with at that point, and people can start scrounging their money and putting it towards. So that's kind of my vision on that. I mean, I think that's a great project. It puts relief in that will take some traffic off both 69 and 89A between the two communities. You know, if there's a bad accident on one of the two main routes, there's a relief valve there. From a transportation standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to me. I can see there being some public pushback on it, honestly.
Yeah, Pike Hills.
I've heard the residents of
Yeah,
Pike
Pike
Hills have been very adamantly against it because it's kind of in their view shed. But
As everything on the
yeah,
western side of.
yeah. But on the other hand, from a transportation connectivity and regionally significant routes, it honestly makes a ton of sense.
And it does to me too. And to Dan's last point, I was concerned where city staff stood with that, at least meeting with the public works director and the engineer. They're willing to, at this time, move forward with it, but easier said than done because there will
Right.
be pushback and there will be, the Pie Hills residents and other citizens concerns. So we're aware of that, but still willing to have the conversation moving forward. The last note I would say is also pay attention to what's happening with the city of Prescott, because they are under development.
It's gonna be.
Storm Ranch is coming and
One day.
across from the jail, so that initial Prescott part will, outside of Simcoe, be getting developed, and the road itself is, if you will, is getting shaped as we speak. So again, this isn't the only maybe forum for you all to be watching and tracking and providing input, but city development is happening. So
Does it impact the Dells and what's
No.
just,
No.
okay, not the
So
Dells.
do you know where the juvenile
Yeah.
justice facility and the new justice center, the
Right.
county's building is? There's that roundabout right there.
Right,
So it takes off on the north leg of that roundabout. That's
Yeah.
where
right. There's a
This is coming
sign
in,
there with
exactly.
nothing yet.
the other end is over by Home Depot, Hobby Lobby, whatnot on 69.
Prescott Valley.
Will it impact the actual, in other words, will Glassford Hills be shaved as for that road to
So
go in?
certainly they're gonna have to do some kind of earthwork because it does go up over that kind of haunch of Glasford, but it's not like it's up on the top. Diamond Valley, it's just Diamond Valley abuts state land department lands right there on it, on Diamond Valley's north side, and I think the plan is that the road will be just north of that boundary, so it's almost adjacent to existing residential development. So,
And the Prescott Valley portion is developed now. That intersection is developed and prepared
Yep.
that this would happen someday. So if you go to that, it's
kind of connecting the two
Yeah.
endpoints at this.
so, I mean, that Prescott Valley part, when you go and you wonder, gosh, why is this area so big? It's planned for this exact road. So
So it's like down on Glassford at
where Culver's is, what is it, across from Sprouts? Is it?
Um,
Or,
It's not where
Sundog.
Culver's is, it's
Yeah, it's
where
further down.
Home Depot and.
thank you, Home Depot area.
okay.
The Verizon stores there, it's
Yes.
across from, the big shopping center where Ross is
Sprouts.
and all that.
Where Sprouts is
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I guess
Across-
Sprouts is.
It's that same light
Stoner
where you
is,
turn
right?
to go.
Is
So
that
basic,
No,
so,
it's farther
Sundog.
towards Prescott. Yeah,
It's
it's
called
called
Sundog.
Sundog.
Okay.
so basically, the traffic problem on 69 is gonna continue until it gets to that shopping center.
Yes.
Well, and I mean, certainly there's long-term planning of widening 69 further, getting it all 6 lanes between two communities. That's a separate problem, a separate, funding issue, and I think that Simpo, Vinnie's already mentioned more work on 69. That's.
I bet Norm will figure a way.
Well, it's, it's really gonna come down to the state lobbying for it. But if the communities and the county can all be a part of that solution and come together, and Simpo has been very open about forwarding designs and getting things moving forward to get it in the discussion, it helps free up money at the state level. The existing 69 project is a perfect example of that. I mean, we're still pretty lucky to have gotten that money for construction development, in my opinion. So, and we've definitely have had to fend off people that wanted to take it for their own projects numerous times. So,
Don't look at me.
yeah, well, I'm not saying you taking it. I'm just saying you're part of the defense of this.
Right.
In regards to the Great Western Plan, we all heard about the Prescott North planning,
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
And so that's kind of going on hold for a while. So,
Oh, is it?
so The city of Prescott hired a consulting firm to come in. And I want to see if I can figure this out, because I still haven't figured it out, as planning staff. So they're kind of looking at the plans that have been approved. Well, we've told them to do that and kind of show what are the needs in these areas, what kind of uses, like commercial. We all know there is a grocery store needed in North Prescott. Where would be a good area for that, and what other uses or needs are there in that area, and how could that area possibly be developed around the airport and kind of where Great Western may go. Prescott Valley did not participate at all in it. They set up meetings with Prescott Valley, and Prescott Valley did not show up. So, and with the election and everything right now, they're focusing on the Granite Creek corridor, because that's more priority right now than North Prescott, because we already have planning documents, master plans for North Prescott. So until we see what Prescott Valley is doing, it's more likely they're the ones going to be annexing and developing that area. Until we see what's going to happen and who the new possible director. I think they're getting a new community development director.
Yeah, Richard Parker retired.
I think he's
Yeah,
retiring.
yeah.
That was the rumor we
Yeah,
heard.
I
And
heard
so
that too.
we're kind of waiting to see who gets on board there and see how we can work better with Prescott Valley. So,
And there's a new town manager, so
Exactly.
hopefully a newer day, if you will.
yeah, so we're hoping to have a little bit more better communication with Prescott Valley, because we are budding now. I mean,
Is section 33 that's not being annexed under the Granite Dells
Prescott
agreement?
Valley is annexing it right now.
But are we providing water to it?
Yes. It's an IGA with Prescott Valley, but we get the wastewater back to recharge. So you gotta remember, Prescott Valley, they're not a water provider. You have to bring your water credits and your water to Prescott Valley, and they do not do any recharge. That's why Prescott kind of does what it does. We kind of still have managing, they have to follow our regulations for water usage. And like for landscaping and such, we only allow low tolerant, low water use plants. So they have to follow that. And we get to the wastewater back for recharge, which is huge.
I could put it in a very colorful way, but I won't.
Yeah, but you gotta remember Prescott Valley doesn't. So I mean, when it goes back into Prescott Valley system, we don't know where it goes. So, but they don't recharge like we do. So like the city does. So
But they will pay us for that water that we
Yes.
provide for that area.
yes,
that
they pay
make
extra,
access to.
actually. Anybody outside the city, they pay an extra surcharge onto the water, like Chino Valley and all the water that goes up to Chino, they pay extra to have that water. So, and they're willing to pay it to have it. So yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be interesting to see what comes out of all that, because 32, the state land department will be in question too, of who's gonna get that. Is it gonna be the city of Prescott or town of Prescott Valley taking it, getting it, I guess. So, but that North area plan, what I was told is kind of being hold off for a while. So,
Is it the same consultant that did the Granite Creek corridor
Yes.
study?
yes. So I know they're having a meeting about it today. We'll know more. Actually, I think they're having a meeting right now about it. So with the consultant, with the planning staff. So I'll know more today, but my understanding is it's going to kind of be slow down on that effort, because there's some things changing up in the North Prescott area. So a lot changing up in the North Prescott area. So wait to see what happens with all that. So we have some other businesses coming in up there, and we're going to see how it all plays out.
Well, there's a lot going on.
Yes, there is. So, but you know, the city council saved the Dallas yesterday, so that was a huge hurdle. And we were very ecstatic to finally have that piece done and get actually, you have your framework, now we start building the puzzle. And it's all public hearings. So public still has plenty of times to comment on everything that goes on in there.
Well, there's a 30-day period built into the agreement, right?
Well, no, that's just required by state law. There's there could be a referendum filed, but our understanding is that more than likely that won't happen because with the Save the Dells is pretty happy with what we have right now. And like I said, this was just one hurdle. Now we start building the puzzle, and it's all through public hearing processes. So there's plenty more times for the public to comment on everything that goes on out there. It'll all be out in the public. So, yep. A lot happening. So I think we,
Good, thanks.
okay.
Tammy.
So
Thank you.
next,
Thank you for allowing us to get clarification on issues that weren't necessarily on the agenda.
and we understand that, this last year was hard it was kind of, everything was kind of stalled. And we don't know what's happening in the future. Anything can happen right now, the next month or year or whatever. But we want to create that framework, and we are now going to be involved at the very beginning. So that's why the retreat was kind of important. I wanted you guys to be part of it so you can hear what they want us to work on.
Yeah, and I was glad you spoke up because, like I said, I was just trying to be effective and wasn't sure how that would work the best. And Tammy advocated for you also. When you get lunch, thank her for lunch that day.
Where
Prescott Resort, August the 11th, Wednesday, August the 11th, 12 to 3.
Wednesday,
Yes,
August.
we'll have lunch right at noon and then we'll hit the ground running. And the first hour, it'll be a bunch of other quick topics we need to run through that you all will listen to, but maybe not as much interest to. But the second part of the program will be the 5-year projects. Thanks, Tim.
So our next agenda item is the Comprehensive Land Use Advisory Committee for Yavapai County is updating their comprehensive plan. And we understood that there's some people wanted to talk about that.
Yes.
So just so,
Can we get involved with that process?
so that's something that, so I was gonna give some background. What is a comprehensive plan? Mostly a county comprehensive plan.
Right.
To put it in non-planning terms, it's kind of a feel-good document. It's not binding. It's not regulatory. The only thing that's kind of regulatory is the land use map, which kind of, and I have no idea how they're doing it this time around. I did the last one. I pretty much facilitated it and pulled it together the last comprehensive plan. And I know there's information in there regards to wildlife corridors because I wrote that section and I know that was put in there. So if they take it out, it's, but basically the land use portion is the only one that require a major plan amendment or any plan amendments. The rest of it's kind of like what we would like to see or may or no shalls usually in the comprehensive plan. It's a lot of like, we would like to see this, we would like to see that kind of stuff. But for us as an EMAC group to participate in that, we have to have direction from the SIPA board and the TAC as to how they would want us to be involved in that.
But as a private citizen,
You can do it as a private citizen, please. And, Vinny is also part of that. And if there's any sections that he feels that we may want to review or maybe look at, he would send it to us.
Yeah, I was asked to be a part of the committee, as I understand it. I mean, it's a lengthy process too. It's well over a year. I think they
Yes.
warned us or gave us a heads up, I think 15 months. So literally, I just attended, well, actually, tomorrow will be the third meeting of possibly up to 15. So just to let the group know, at the very earliest of stages, as a public member, you are more than invited.
where and
We have
when?
been meeting in this room. However, tomorrow is in the Verde Valley. It's in Cottonwood.
But they do it
And there's a
online.
virtual way to participate though.
If you go to their agenda on their website, on
Oh,
the
so
county website, there's a link to participate. And I think you may have to pre-register if I remember looking at that.
Yeah.
So-
And Tammy knows a little bit more because I, for some reason, got overlooked with the link and they just gave it to me this morning, but I haven't looked at it yet. So, but
I don't know. I just saw it on the agenda. I just was looking at it to see what they were doing. So,
and what we're trying to do, as I understand it, trying to go through each element, and I don't even know how many elements there are, but I feel 6, is it?
6.
So I know like the first meeting was energy, the second one was environment, transportation's coming up. And the real focus of the group seems to be right now, their staff is working on a survey to go out to the community. And the committee that I'm serving on is wanting to really review and critique the survey questions. That's where I feel we spent most of our energy. And yeah, that's where we're at. So however I can help with that. But again, you as the public individually are invited to participate.
Can we get on an email list to be informed of the meetings, just like people can for this?
Can you make a note, Allison, and let's follow up with that. I assume you can, JD. I don't have the exact
Okay.
answer.
Or
I assume you can. I'll find out and let you know. Hey, Allison, let's find out. You could just email the whole group and let them know the link to the meeting and how, if they wanted to be on an email list, how that exists. And I think on the board, I lost track, but I think there's like 10 of us. 2 county supervisors, Supervisor Harry Oberg and Supervisor Michaels from the Verde Valley, myself, and then seems like a pretty cross section of other people in the community. So, and then Dave Williams is really leading it on behalf of the staff as the Development Services Director. So.
But definitely you as a member are welcome to participate. And if any sees something that maybe that we would be interested in, maybe reviewing or give comments on, then he would let us know.
and certainly taking the survey.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I just want to make sure that, and I'm sure you're on the same boat that I'm on, and that is that what you have or what's in there doesn't go away, first of all. And second of all, that what we've done already for the transportation plan, which is all of central Yavapai County, not conflict with the comprehensive plan.
And usually the plan gets adopted into it. The transportation plan gets adopted as part of
into
it.
the
That's what we did
comprehensive
last
plan.
time.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Yeah.
similarly,
Racial.
the Verde Valley Master Transportation Plan will get adopted into the
Yes.
Oh, I see.
comprehensive
Okay.
plan as well.
Okay.
So that we're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to the transportation elements of the
Yes.
comprehensive.
Oh,
plan.
okay.
That's very smart of them.
Because you gotta remember, I mean, Yavapai County is 5,800 square feet. We have 5,800 square miles.
I wish.
Simpo, and Simpo's 400 square miles.
400, we're just a
Yeah,
tiny
we're-
piece of it.
And also take into mind, the Simpo area is mostly incorporated. So Yavapai County really has, their plan has nothing to do with what we will be focusing on. It's mostly Prescott Valley, Prescott, and Chino. It may be Dewey Humboldt if they ever do anything. So,
Yeah, our area geographically is very, very small, but the opposite is with population. The population is mostly in that small area.
yeah, so I mean, that's what I want to make sure you guys really kind of realize, that the county is more spread out, but what we focus on, the county comprehensive plan really would have no jurisdiction.
Is there ever any consideration for expanding the boundaries for Simple? I know it's come up in the past.
We
but-
talked
It'll have to be census related if it is. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with the 2020 census.
We floated the idea out. 'Cause when I was here last time, it was like 6 years ago.
Is it a density, type of density to some degree?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And where we were going, this was looking at possible countywide transportation funding is what we were looking at, like establishing a transportation authority. And we were tying Simpo into it. So what we proposed at the time was modeling the Yuma MPO, which covers the entire county of Yuma. So that's the only one in the state of Arizona. And we use that as the example. We got buy-in. I think where I lost support was in the Verde Valley. When I went to go visit with people in the Verde Valley and try and start to float this idea out, there wasn't a lot of support, which I'm sure Dan deals with, the different issues on the different side of the mountain all the time.
So the Verde Valley has what they call the Verde Valley Transportation Planning Organization. They don't qualify as an MPO like SIMPO does. And so they do get some funding that comes down through NACOG, Northern Arizona Council of Governments. But it's dealt with in a very different fashion. You know, they all the local jurisdictions kind of take turns with the annual money, and oftentimes they'll line up 2 years together so they can lump 2 years of money into one thing and do a project with it. It's usually a transportation related project, you know, so they'll get together, you know, $500,000 and then they'll throw some of their own money in and build something that has value to them. And then it's off to, you know, Camp Verde will do a couple of years and Sedona will do a couple of years and Yavapai County will do some. And it's
Very
It's
flexible.
not focused on planning like this organization is at all. It's more about just kind of talking with each other, you know, putting their heads together. What do you got going on and whose turn is it to get the money kind of thing. So.
Yeah, there was a huge fear in the room and like you said, just a number of things, but on our end, you know, we saw some real opportunity. The board at the time, Craig was on the board, Brown was on the board, and you know, Chris, myself, Craig, and kind of building up some momentum on this side of the mountain. Went out there and, you know, just
There has been a lot
decided
of
it wasn't a
change.
good discussion to
Well,
pursue.
I'm not even sure Craig Brown's really a fan of a RTA kind of thing where it creates a whole new level of government and taxation and all that. I think he kind of waffled while you were here, and then after you went up to Havasu, I think he really kind of started. I think Chris Bridges was kind of in his ear a little bit, but Craig around 2018, 2019, I think he was coming to the conclusion that, boy, this is a terrible idea in his mind. So,
But expanding to I-17
Yeah.
would seem to make sense though.
It would, and I mean, it's a whole different board Dan has now, you know, but at the time, you know, Tom Thurman and Rowley.
Right.
You know, trying to get the guys to understand at the time saying, hey, you know, you have transportation needs. The only other way to generate funds is this. So you're right, Dan. They definitely tolerated Chris and I for a certain point, and we tried. You know, we're planners, so we're always trying to throw something up the wall. And you know, at some point, maybe we could revisit it again, just with maybe a different approach. So
I don't think Craig's running again in 24. So.
are you gonna run?
Why does that rumor keep coming up?
I didn't even know it was a
Talking
rumor.
about it.
I'm just putting myself
Marlene
out there.
was like, so Dan, you're taking over for Craig, right? And I was like, what? I'm no politician.
I'm just putting myself out there for campaign manager for
Oh,
us.
okay, very good.
Actually, you're more valuable where you are.
Thank you.
So are there any other questions about the comprehensive land use?
No, we'll run everything through the.
Yeah, that might be the best way to do
Thank you.
it.
Happy to.
Okay, next item is review and discuss Arizona Game and Fish Wildlife linkages maps, which were done, I believe, and if I can remember right, Elizabeth might know, this was done like in 09, 10, long time ago.
Right here,
No,
2010.
yeah,
Okay.
and
I'm looking for the data.
I'm surprised I remembered that. It was at Orm School and
Yeah.
it was a lot of input. Are there any discussions about, because there's been a lot of changes since then? When you look through it, when it talks about certain areas, there's been a lot of changes. Is there any talks about updating this? Elizabeth?
Not to my knowledge. Chuck, do you, or have you heard anything?
I was just curious.
No, nothing about not updating this.
Okay,
I will be talking about the wildlife collision conflict study, which could be considered maybe an extension of this.
okay.
But not this particular document.
So have there been any updates? I guess, so I just want to make sure that when we start looking at these areas, that we have like some of the more recent, because all the information, the linkages, the layers, from what I remember, were from the 2010. And there's been changes. Do you know if there's been updates to the wildlife corridor, data?
I will have to look at our online stuff in our habitat database and see if things have been updated, but not to my knowledge. However, things could have been updated down in Phoenix with research like Jeff and Scott, what they do. But they're normally really good about getting back to us if things have been updated and changed. But I'll just double check and confirm.
Okay, because I know with the next topic, the pronghorn study, they used that old layer because that's the layer I got when we did that study too. So I was just curious if there has been any updates that we may be able to get access to. But
yeah, not to my knowledge, no.
so I can't remember why we had this on the agenda. The linkages, maps.
Chuck wanted to discuss it.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to discuss it in terms of planning,
Yeah.
that we as a group begin to start to become aware of what's out there. I realize a lot of it's a little old, but at the same time, I think Game and Fish has really done a great job at studying a lot of habitat areas around here through those habitat partnership committees. Is that what they're called? HPC?
Yeah, so the HPC is mainly is project based. So people who are wanting to do projects out on the landscape, they can put in an application to potentially receive funding to do projects on the landscape.
Oh, okay. So, and then the statewide action plan, that's going to be updated next year, I guess.
Yes, so currently right now, I'm actually on that team. So we've been we're in the process of updating the State Wildlife Action Plan, and it's going to be paper copy and online. So we're still wrapping all of that up because the old swap, the 2012 to 2022, it ends next year. And so we're hoping to have this one done into the commission for approval early next year.
Well, I just thought documents like that could help us understand the science, the biology, all that sort of thing. So when we look at these 4 projects, we can look at them from that kind of standpoint, from that kind of education and perception. So that's why I wanted to bring it up at this meeting.
Sure.
I didn't really know how the retreat was going to go, but at the same time, I think that educates us. And the statewide wildlife action plan is on the Arizona Game and Fish website under the planning stuff. And I just think you guys have done a whole bunch of really, really good studies that can all help us in understanding this sort of thing.
And the county does have, they had the linkages layer.
On the
I had
website.
sent it to Craig Brown at one time
Mm.
back in 15, 16. And I had
That
it.
sounds so old now.
I know it
all of a sudden.
does. And I'm surprised I remember all this, but as I was reading through all this stuff, I had flashbacks of sitting through that meeting, looking at all these studies. So
You can't remember where your car keys are, but you.
no, I know where they are, right there.
Right?
I know how to get out of here really quick. But that's information that we can look at when we look at the information that maybe Game and Fish maybe will give us more updated information as we define our areas that we're looking at. Instead of looking, 400 square miles, we're going to be more focused on certain areas. Then we can get the data for that. In the county, they can create maps usually for it because we're really with the county. The information you're looking for, like the drainages and floodways and stuff like that, we can get maps to show all that as we are moving forward. So we can see that a little bit more and kind of layer it all on top of each
Yeah,
other.
that's what,
And future
we want,
development
yeah.
projects to see where they are too, because that's going to
Right.
be a huge thing too.
well, we gotta have corridors. to have
Well, Storm
crossing.
Ranch is already platted, so, well, okay, they have I'm trying to remember, they have a preliminary plat approved. And I don't remember if they had a final, I think they have a final plat approved, but I don't think it's been recorded yet. So, because we're waiting to hear from them again, or whoever's taking over Storm Ranch. So,
I-
but go ahead.
I just had another idea, and of course, it would be beyond Simpo's whatever, but I'm just thinking with in planning and zoning for all of the municipalities, it would be wonderful if, along with all the guidelines as to what kind of piping you can use and what kind of landscaping you could use, that they could build in 10 or 15 feet corridors required through all developments for wildlife.
That would
Don't
be-
developers normally have green space though? Or am I, for some reason, just pulling that out of thin air?
So it depends on the type of development they're doing. If it's a standard subdivision, no.
But a PAD,
But a planned area developments, they have 25% open space, and they do use the floodplains and those corridors as their open space. And that's things that we can look at.
But
moving
it's
forward.
not
But
always
Storm Ranch is already
contiguous.
approved, so that one we just need to get what was approved and see where it is in relation to all that.
Because I know that at Antelope Crossing, at the planning and zoning after that, and I will thank you again, Ron James. He, between the planning and zoning and when he went to the city for the final approval, he added in 3 more acres because it was pointed out to him at the planning and zoning by a certain community member that they weren't contiguous, that it's, having a plot here and having a plot there and having walls around the whole development didn't lead to much wildlife connectivities, but
That will help us definitely to have that information for the Sundog.
Yeah, yeah. And that's information we can get for mapping.
does the county have, so in other words, if it's just a standard subdivision, there's probably a snowball's chance that could be incorporated in the guidelines.
Because
But
they're trying to get as many lots as possible with
With-
what they can do.
but with the PADs and we can, I know it's out of the thing of Simpo, but I'm just trying to think countywide. I mean, I'd love to do it statewide, but
Well, in a way, it's not out of Simpo because it's one of the projects we're looking at.
For Sundog corridor, yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
the storm, but like I said, Storm Ranch is already approved, so that's, I'd have to look at it, because I haven't seen it,
I
and I don't know where they are in the process or when they're coming forward. We heard soon, but
and that's what I was trying to do at Deepwell Ranch too, because it doesn't take a whole lot for a developer to leave
yeah.
a little bit of space for the animals.
And I
to
think
get
Depot
through.
Ranch, we have a lot of potential out there, still, because, there are some things changing out there, but, and then moving forward with the Great Western, we have a lot of potential there if we get ahead of all that, so. But that's why we're going to do the planning documents, so we are ahead of that, and then coordinate with Prescott Valley and stuff to see what their plans are for that.
And there again, when we tie in with educating the community, they can help us push towards perhaps those changes in regulations or what guidelines for PADs and whatever in all the municipal, and it may be even in the county and the unincorporated areas. So
Yeah.
the dream keeps expanding.
There, last February, there was mention of a PNF funded with the research center in Flagstaff using game and fish telemetry data for pronghorns in central Arizona to make a model for best areas of migration. Did you?
Yes, so thank you for sending me that email. We talked about this a couple of years ago. We met with Dr. Kushner, who is at the research center in Flagstaff. He's a pretty renowned landscape ecologist. He did a really big project up in Montana with very similar stuff. They were trying to plan out roads and migration for bears. And so we brought him in with pronghorn stuff because of our projects on the forest and just in general. Last I heard, it was funded, but then my point of contact has left the forest since then. And with this last year. So I'm trying to reach out and figure out where we are in that process. I contacted our old employee and he never got back to me. So I contacted Dr. Kushner directly. but he hasn't got back to me yet. So
Summer.
so I'm hoping it's still moving forward. But, it seemed like there was we were going pretty well, but then everything happened. So hopefully I will have an answer soon for the group, but I really hope it went through. Last I heard, we did secure funding, so that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Once we get funding, but yeah, hopefully it just got pushed through as a priority. So once Dr. Kushner gets back to me, which hopefully he will, I can then let everyone know where we stand. It's already been, a couple of years since we met originally.
And this would be if we're looking for recent data, this would be a piece of that, right?
Yes, and I guess it ties in with the Game and Fish stuff. And it's using, and that was one thing we were trying to figure out, because it was Game and Fish data. There was there was Forest Service funding, so that's why we were like, well, it is, kind of a joint data set. So they were trying to work out those kinks, but for this corridor, he was looking more at what these actual corridors are, whereas from what I understand with the Game and Fish stuff, it was a joint group with all the different partners, and they were looking kind of at where's development going to be, where's public land. So it's going to be I would like to see how they compare to each other, because one was more looking at like who owns the land now versus if no one owned the land, where are these pronghorn going? So so I'll be curious. It'll be interesting to see how the two, if this project's moving forward at all, how these two compare to each other.
Would Noelle know anything about that? No?
She would not know where we are in the process.
Okay, because she's brought it up several times, like a couple of meetings, and okay, good to know.
It's interesting because the mule deer just go wherever they want, regardless of who owns the property, it seems.
Well, the thing was, I guess when they were looking at that, it's like, what's going to be developed for pronghorn wooden cross, stuff like that. Because and pronghorn are a little bit different. They like that big view
They
shed.
like the open, whereas deer hang out in our backyard.
Yeah, I have them in my parking lot. So.
Which kind of leads us to the next study,
Can I
which,
make a quick comment?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Tanya.
no, it's okay.
Just wanted to note, we are streaming this virtually, and we actually do have, I know you're discouraged, no one's in the room, but virtually, we actually do have a handful of people participating. I see two board members, and Gary Knight and Tom Armstrong from town of Chino Valley council members. So I do want to appreciate their participation for sitting in the meeting. And then we have a few other people from the public participating. So I know JD, you were discouraged, no other faces in the room, but virtually they're with us. And
Thank you, community members.
Yeah.
You're a rock star.
so just to not be completely discouraged.
I guess I should watch my comments.
And that's what, even in the city, we with the COVID, when everything shut down, we started using Zoom for meetings right away. We missed like maybe a month, maybe 2 months worth of meetings. And we got up and running really quick and using Zoom, and we were still going to continue using it because it gives the public an alternative way of participating. And it's worked really well, even for our commissioners or Board of Adjustment members, that if they aren't feeling well or something comes up, or if they're traveling, they can still participate from anywhere.
I think you guys would prefer that I participate by Zoom because I can hear and I can watch, but I don't have a microphone, so I can't speak.
No, we say that.
We can also shut people up too. Sorry. But that's a great segue into the next study, where they did look at where the habitat was. And I'm trying to go off of memory a little bit here. They were looking at the existing habitats and they're studying with their GIS layers, and then using the other data from Game and Fish, the linkages maps, and kind of see where they were going and where they had to do, where they could do mitigation to provide better habitat. So that's what this other study was. And
Madam Chair.
go ahead. Yes, please.
Just real quick in regards to the public and viewing, is there any way if they need or have a question to ask, that they can chime in?
Yes, they can raise their hand and Allison can bring them into unmute them.
Okay,
Allow them to speak.
so,
So at the bottom of their screen, there's a hand that they can hit, and it'll raise their hand. And then Allison can unmute them and allow them to speak.
what if they are called in via phone because they're out in the field?
Yeah, they don't have a way of doing that.
Okay.
They don't have a way of raising their hand or anything, letting us know.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Welcome. Do you know anything about this study or what happened? Because I know they did some implementation of it from the pictures. But I think it stalled.
So to my knowledge, and Jeff Gagnon, he's listening on via phone, and he would be one with more knowledge to be able to speak on this. But to my knowledge, so take it as you will, CAGS is no longer a funded source for projects. We are now focusing more on NAGI, which is the Northern Arizona Grasslands Initiative, which is focusing more on projects north of I-40. That doesn't mean things are not getting done within the Central Arizona grasslands. But to my knowledge, CAGS it's there, but it's not funded anymore.
Okay.
So, and as far as what went on with the rest of this, I'm not updated or a wealth of knowledge to speak accurately on it.
So
Sorry, guys.
we could probably unmute or allow him to talk. Yeah. So he can unmute himself or he can ask to unmute and it'll tell him how to unmute it.
Okay.
Oh, she's doing it, sorry. I can't remember how they unmute themselves on their phone.
Is this Jeff?
Yes.
All right.
Well, while they're doing that, the people, and I can't see quite that far, but the people who are attending by Zoom, can their names be included on the minutes of the meeting?
She'll have
Just as-
access to it because they came in and she can run a report
Good,
of who attended.
because I think that's important for us to know who's involved.
There you go. Okay. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, thank you. It was driving me crazy not to be able to talk. So yeah, I'm in the field. I'm not able to get on internet, but I've been listening on a couple of things, and the first is talking about the modeling effort. That's Sam Cushman that's actually working on the modeling effort, and we provided data to look at basically connectivity models down into all the way from up around Camp Navajo all the way down to the into the Prescott area. And we are also doing that through a secretarial order project, Secretarial Order 3362. We're doing some more modeling in there. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 60 pronghorn collars out there right now on the landscape. And many of those animals are in Prescott Valley area, Chino Valley area right now. They're migrating from the Prescott area all the way up to Flagstaff, and we're collecting that information. And so some of the areas down around Prescott are pretty important to these animals. And you know, as we get into, I don't know if we've got into this part of the agenda item, but we have several previous studies, including that Great Western Extension movement data to help guide that, and some Chino Valley movement data, and then some various research studies that have been done on pronghorn grasslands in the past. And so there's a lot of information to add to that. As far as the Central Arizona grasslands, Elizabeth's right. They're not actively funding, like research projects or anything, but they're doing work in there. They don't have a lot of money going towards that. It's going more towards Northern Arizona grasslands and working side by side with the Forest Service on some of the fry and some of the other issues going on up there to try and also restore grasslands. So hopefully that helps with some of that information.
Thank you very, very much for that.
Not to interrupt real quick, but ran into this guy in the hallway, and he has all JD's answers, and he had more questions than I know what to do with.
All JD's answers.
So Dave Williams is the director of.
Oh, you are the person, yes.
the
thank you.
he has to run really quick, but we
Yeah.
were just caught each other in the hallway. He's gonna let you know how to get on the email list, how to get involved with the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
So give him 2 minutes and then he has to hit the road. So
Yeah.
thanks for popping in.
Not a problem. Hi to everybody on the screen.
So how should
So
I,
if you go onto our website, it's planning Yavapai 2032.org.
planning,
Planning Yavapai
Yavapai,
2032.
okay,
.org. Go on there, you can sign up for our mailing list right there. So where we're at right now is we're just in data collection mode. So we've got 2 surveys out right now for the environmental and the energy elements on the website. And then we have just a generic site. We've got community vision surveys out as well. All of that data is being transmitted out to the individual communities, and then just to give us kind of a 10,000-foot view of different things. So we've got all that available. Tomorrow in our meeting, we're going to be putting out the next 6 surveys. So if I get a green light from the comp plan committee, 6 more surveys are going to go out, and that's all 8 elements plus 3 additional. I don't want to call them elements because they're going to work their way into other areas, but we're looking at dark sky compatibility. Yes. I'm an astronomer, so I love it. We want to protect that. So we have dark sky on there. We have disaster sustainability questions on there and food sustainability. Because we've had the Verde Valley Food Council approach us. I want to see if there's things we can do in the plan to help incorporate some of their concepts. So that's where we're at right now. We're in more of a data collection mode than a public presentation mode.
and your number,
It's Dave Williams. My phone number is 928-442-5505.
5505,
Yes.
okay, so I can, because, yes.
Please.
Yes, thank
And
you.
I will tell you, push that information out to everybody. More people we can get on the list, the better. It doesn't matter whether they're in the county jurisdiction or the city, they're all county residents. We want to hear from everybody.
Did you guys on the community who are just zooming in hear all of that? Because you're part of the people I would be getting the message out to. So thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Listen, because I've been wanting to get in touch with you for months.
Well, now you got it. And what I was just telling Vinny too, at one of your upcoming meetings, you guys want me to do a formal presentation, just let me know. Give me a week's notice and I'll make sure we're there.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Dave.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Wonderful.
You guys take care.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Cool. So is Jeff done?
And I
We
didn't
interrupted Jeff.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
That's okay. I'm here for questions now on some of this stuff if you need me.
You guys have any questions for Jeff? But that he has a lot of data that we can use as we see these plans and get more focused in
Mhm.
after we get the direction from your retreat.
Maybe Jeff, maybe you can come and do another presentation, actually be on an agenda.
Yeah.
Again, after the retreat, and
Once we
hopefully
get
you'll
our
still be
areas
in the area.
defined. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, anything else about these 2 items? We're good. Okay. So Chuck, the next one, update the statewide wildlife vehicle mitigation plan.
Yes. We pass something out. These are just a few pages out of it. It's 230 something pages long. So I only pulled out a couple of these things because I identify local efforts at wildlife connectivity and corridors. Is everybody? Another one? Oh, for you, okay. For you, that's, yes. So the statewide wildlife vehicle conflict study has been sent out to the entire committee as a draft for final comment. And final comment was due on Monday, July 12. And I looked through it and really didn't make any comments other than I thought it was really well done. Very comprehensive, lots of information, lots of study, lots of links to research and research opportunities, research opportunity grants and funding, that sort of thing. It went through the purpose and need and evaluation of information, what is happening and why, develop, prioritize project level scopes to mitigate identified conflicts. Prescott presents solutions for conflict areas and develop planning approaches that allows ADOT to examine existing and future roads, which falls right into our bailiwick. And its conclusions, some of the conclusions were significant. This is a significant and growing issue. It advocates a proactive commitment by ADOT to assess, identify, and prioritize highway segments where where conflicts exist. Arizona Transportation Research Center is a tool we could use for getting grants to study some of these things that we're looking at. There are, when the report is finally released, there will be all kinds of links in it. And I will present the report then to the EMAC. So everybody can read the whole thing.
Did this group, because one of the issues that we've been dealing with for several years now is the fact that the terminology and classifications have not been uniform throughout all of the groups that are doing studies. That sometimes when it's an animal that's hit on the highway, it's just listed under agricultural instead of the fact that it may be a deer, and we've discussed this before. So has that been addressed? Has that been resolved? Are we all talking apples and apples, or is there still a big diversity in terms of the accidents, the vehicle accidents with?
I don't know if they have resolved that. I didn't read all the way through it completely. Jeff, are you still on the line? Did you hear the question that JD had?
Yeah, I did hear the question. So one of the concerns that I had as well was that they would lump in cattle and horses and burros with wildlife, and those take completely different approaches to mitigation. So what they did is they took the data where they had the ability to separate wildlife versus non-wildlife out, including going into some of the notes and trying to tease that out. So it's pretty well wildlife focused and not focused on livestock. And the other thing to consider is it's usually large wildlife because it's animals that cause injuries, fatalities, or significant property damage. So it's limited to larger wildlife, and not mixed in with some of the other non-wildlife.
The other question I had is that several years ago, we had a report from Pima County, because as you know, Pima County passed a bond issue that allowed them to do, and I think there are 2 underpasses now on I-10. Are we also finding out and getting information from them and bringing them into the loop of, learning from their experience?
Pima County?
Yes. Tucson specifically, I don't.
I don't know. We could discuss that. I mean,
I think we've gotten that information before.
But it's been years and
that was
may.
before EMAC actually got started.
Before
we
we
were sitting down with Chris and
Yes.
forming this
Yes.
concept.
Yes.
And we talked to that guy from Pima County, and they were, to me, they were in a different area than we were, in the sense that
They have their own money.
they have their own money, they can buy their own land and all that kind of stuff. And we're not in that category.
But we can learn from what experiences they've had.
Well, is that something we want to present at the retreat, new taxes?
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that. No.
But at any rate, I think, that's another source of valuable information for us. We certainly don't,
Well, we could have them zoom in to one of our meetings and talk to them,
they'd probably love to come from Tucson up to Prescott sometime in August or September.
Well, we can also see what kind of routes that we defined for other information.
Yeah, but at any rate, that's just something that also came to mind as we're doing this whole global review of what's information and experiences is available.
This is Jeff. I wanted to add, if you want any contacts for that, the RTA, Regional Transportation Authority, I'm working with them on monitoring wildlife crossings in Pima County. And there's a few folks that were advocates for getting that gas tax in place to get the funding for the wildlife crossings and connectivity. So there's a few of them I think that would be more than happy to speak about it if that becomes an agenda item in the future.
Great, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
See, Jeff, you are our official expert.
So that's kind of where the vehicle wildlife conflict study is. It's winding down, it's almost done. It's very comprehensive. I think it's going to be a great overlay on the transportation part of the SIMPO transportation plan. It gets into a lot more detail on the technologies for options for wildlife protection, signage and lighting and timing of bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff. So I think it'll be a very good document for us to familiarize ourselves with. And it is an ADOT document. They did pay for it. It was run through a consultant that used to work for ADOT. Actually, several of the consultants used to work for ADOT that were on this committee. So it's a real transportation-oriented plan, which is what we are. We're a transportation-oriented ecosystem connectivity committee.
Hey, Chuck, and I'm going to follow up with you there. You mentioned the bells and whistles and technology. The way the report's written out is so that there's things you can do now and things you can do long-term. And in some cases, the bells and whistles technology is the things you can do now, with the intention of the long-term planning being things like wildlife crossings and fencing. And so it's just trying to find ways to do stuff with lower budgets now and hopes for better in the future. And also 69 was on that list, on that map as one of the hot spots, but it was to a point, as we've discussed, too far along. So it's more in the trying to find ways to get it done otherwise to keep animals off the road.
And that's a really good point, Jeff, that this report brings out things we can do now, things we can do later, things that are short-term quick fixes, if there's no federal money, or even if there is federal money, and then something later we can look at for down the road to improve because of what's happening with land use or what's happening with population or whatever. So yeah, that was a really good point, Jeff. Thanks for bringing that up.
Was there anything else about the plan? You'll send this out when it gets a final copy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, which will probably be the end of August, I'm suspecting.
Okay.
Although they did a pretty good job of it, so there may not be too many comments, so.
And Elizabeth put a note on the screen that she didn't get this, so we can.
Yeah.
We can scan it and email it to her.
Oh, sure, yes.
Yeah, so
We'll get you a
Yes.
copy.
we'll get you a copy,
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
You know what, one of our meetings when a meeting I think probably would take a good portion of the day is when we get all of this data, all of these reports together, do something like we've done at the retreats where they're almost like the sheets that are around the room and pull all of these ideas together about what can be done and where it needs to be done and just, really.
We're going to focus on our areas that we've been designated to look at. you know.
Yeah. the
So we're
forward.
gonna look at the planning area,
Yeah.
for the plan we're looking at and look at that area.
Right, right.
So
But I mean, just.
like a focused area that's scaled down, so you can see it, actually see the data.
But taking ideas from all of the different
Yes,
areas
yeah.
that people are studying. Yeah.
definitely. So, next steps. When do we have another meeting scheduled? So we have the retreat next month. And then where will we have our next meeting? We had another one.
When would you like to? Because right now, and I always ask.
Oh,
that-
yeah, we were gonna,
That was the regular meeting,
Yeah.
and we moved that up for this, right?
yes,
Yes.
And,
The next one I have is October 25th is what the schedule says.
okay.
and this group, you guys are meeting quarterly, is that
Well,
correct?
unless we had something, right, at the time we did quarterly because we didn't have anything. And but as we get a project, then we can meet more often.
Okay.
Well, I think we might need a few more meetings for education, training, like workshop types of things, like things that Francisco was talking about, the telemetry that Jeff was talking about. Some of these studies, I think we really need to educate ourselves for future activities. And so I would suggest maybe meeting once or twice between our now and our October meeting. I don't know how everybody feels about that. I'm sure staff is already overloaded with all kinds of stuff.
Well, why don't we wait and see what comes out of the retreat
Okay,
first? And then we
Okay.
can discuss whether we should have a meeting before the October 25th.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think the part where I might somewhat compromise a little bit, and you're right, staff is, we are stretched thin. But if it is like you wanted to do a workshop where it's more educational, that's relatively minor on our part. This all takes a little bit more to put together, but if it was inviting someone to give, a workshop.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that's a little bit easier to deliver. And that, I would still advocate for waiting for the retreat. Let's see what comes out of that.
okay.
But if you did want to have a workshop before your October meeting, that was more educational, that to me is, we can do that.
Well, and the other thing I'm looking at too is not just the educational part of it, but funding. I'm finding there's a boatload of funding opportunities. There's a new law that was just passed called the Great American Outdoors Act. It funds $900 million every year from oil taxes to do exactly what we're talking about, create wildlife corridors, create habitat. There are organizations out there that have deep pockets that will buy land to facilitate conservation easements and all that kind of stuff. The new transportation plan, whatever muddled form it'll be passed in, will have money for wildlife protections, connectivity, corridors, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of money out there that we should start looking at and trying to figure out how we can tap into it. And I think a meeting or two between now and October might help us with that.
One of the things that we need to take a look at are, what are the deadlines? Because we've always been
Yeah.
behind it. When are the
Right.
deadlines when you want to write a grant
But you
and
have to have
get
a
it? submitted?
project first.
Well, but I mean, but that's true, but also
To
just,
apply, but to know what they
Yeah.
are, what's available, so then when we do find
Yeah.
out the plan, then we could just plug it in and start.
yeah.
Yeah,
Grant-
we're
grant
ready to go.
So
We
that
need
we
to
don't
be
wanna
get-
ready to
but
go.
we-
We're not ready to go.
If you remember, we have to go through the TAC.
Yes.
and
So
Simba
say the TAC creates a planning project or conceptual design project for Sundog. And
Yeah.
we would hire an outside firm likely to pursue that project. We would give them direction to make sure they're, incorporating some kind of corridor or linkages or whatnot with regards to environmental or wildlife. And then coming out of that would be some cost estimating that we could, find out how much we need to chase, how much money we need to chase via a grant or something. But It's also going to take some commitment as to what the timeline is for completing design, taking it to construction and things like that, so that we have an idea of what to put in a grant application.
Since you can hire someone for the design and what you just described, would there be any funds available for a professional grant writer to work with us?
Well, certainly, we have built things into other contracts in the past for applying for a grant. That is not out of the question.
Good, because that's kind of where, because none of us are professional grant
But
writers.
is there a conflict with us just meeting to talk about these things? You know, what is the Great American Outdoors Act?
No, I don't think there's, I don't think there's
Contact
conflict
who's
on
on the
that.
list, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, not just go willy-nilly applying. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I think for us to make a list of who's out there and who's supporting, right now, there seems to be a lot of money available that's out there that I was talking to one woman that runs an office in Phoenix for a big conservation group. And I said, what do you need to know before we get money? She says, you need a plan, you need an easement, you need someone that'll manage it. You need, you know, there were all these things. And so we need to start talking about those things and bring it together so we can.
The actual mechanics of what,
But
Wow.
first we need the plan and to
Elizabeth
see
has a
where we,
question as well.
oh yeah, sorry, Elizabeth, go ahead.
It's more of a statement. So I got to looking into the Great American Outdoors Act, like Chuck was talking about. And it says the fund must be used for a priority deferred maintenance projects in specified systems that are administered by National Park Service, Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Bureau of Land Management, and Bureau of Indian Education. So what I'm taking back from it, it doesn't have anything to do with private lands. Allison, I sent the website out for you for the bill that was introduced in the Senate talking about all of this. So
Look under the land and water conservation something.
yeah, so they made the LWC
Because
that's
that's not,
permanent funding. Yes.
that's not government funding, is it? Or funding for
Well,
government
so the
land?
state of Arizona, we also participate in LWCF funding.
Uh-huh.
So.
So does that, you're saying that completely excludes us from 900 million a year?
The way I read it, I'm not a professional Congress Senate bill reader, but that's just the summary of what I took back from it.
Right.
So.
But I still think we should look at it and see if there is anything.
but if we're partners, if our partners are the Forest Service and part of that is that land and game and fish, I mean,
There's
In
potential.
the area we're looking at doesn't have any Forest Service property.
No,
It's
but it
maybe
can be
state land,
butted up to Forest Service
but
property.
it's not.
I know, but it can be.
Okay, but the
I
projects
didn't mean to
we're
rain on
looking at,
anybody's parade. I just didn't want us to get too ahead of ourselves and then be devastated
can
later.
we put on a list for like a possibility for
Well, we
future?
should know what's available and how to apply and who the people are and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we may not fit now, but another project, the way it evolves may. I mean, look how close we are to the National Forest at Sundog Road. You know, the crossing at 69 is
State
within
land.
hundreds of feet of
It's
Forest
state
Service.
land.
That's Forest Service.
No,
down
it's
there.
not.
There is
State land.
Forest Service down there.
so estate land exclude, but the thing is that this is what's important. We need to find all of this information out so that
Right.
when we do get to a point and we have a plan, that we know where we would be eligible to get some
And we
funding.
can move, yes.
I think that the discussion that we're having right now is the one we should have in a work group, as far as Elizabeth reading it that way, and like, what are we looking, what are we?
Yeah.
What's out there, and for us to understand, without talking to anybody else, really, just getting that
Yeah.
understood between us so that we can act.
Yeah,
I think because we meet so infrequently and it's always a barrage of information, that to be able to discuss it with other people who know, the fact that you're here is incredible, every single one of you. And what you're saying, no, it's this land, state land, no state, you know. Forest Service.
But that's why we wait till we have the project area.
But I mean, looking at the means to get money
Yeah.
and who's getting it, because the world has kind of changed and there's a lot more people putting money out there and groups that do this sort of thing. And if we can uncover that and look at what their needs are to move, then we have all the info and we wait for the project. And I think that's the part that we're all bringing up.
Yeah.
Is we want to understand what's even available and how we can participate for when the project comes up.
And it
Not-
changes every year. I mean, with federal money, it can change.
That's the
daily.
need for the meetings to keep up on the changes and
Yeah. So as you guys hear stuff, we bring it forward and then
Yeah.
we can document it and then have that.
And their
available in the resource.
timelines.
So that's why I brought up maybe having an extra meeting between now and October, or we sit
Well,
after the retreat in October, have maybe another meeting that would maybe focus on all this money that's floating out there or potentially.
But we are gonna have a
floating.
plan by October
Oh,
done, so I
no,
mean,
but we
we
can
have plenty of
still-
time
we
to,
can still look at, well, getting money takes a while, you know? It's not, especially if it's through the transportation plan, or if it's through.
but these are just gonna be planning documents right now until they are ready to get the construction plans. Is probably when we start looking more about at the more detail of it.
Well, I think it would be great if a plan is approved by the county commissioners or by SIPO board. And we can come in and say, yes, we're ready to make comment on that. Because we've been studying.
And we're ready to
We're gonna
apply.
be- But
and
we're gonna be
we're-
part of that, creating that plan. Because we're
Right.
starting from we're looking at what's existing and updating it. We're gonna be part of that process this time.
We are, but the money still has to be out there upfront. The pursuit of money has to be upfront. We're not gonna get anything accomplished. And I think the TAC would even agree, yeah, bring in more. Sure. If you can bring in more money, that's even better, you know?
Well, that's
And-
that's the kind of thing that'll leverage, other dollars, either local or state or
Sure.
federal
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah.
To get things moving forward, that makes it easier for selling it if you got more partners at the tables.
And it may, and when we bring in matching dollars, the sources of that matching dollars may enable us to work on land that otherwise we wouldn't be able to work on. So, yeah, it's just, we need to have all of the options known to us.
Yes. Yes. So after the retreat, would we discuss this at like a little sidebar at the retreat or by email or?
But I think Vinny was pretty clear that our goals at the retreat are to decide what projects are our priority.
Right.
After we decide what projects are our priority, then we can move forward with the EMAC and deciding how EMAC can support those priorities.
Yeah, and I would say at your October meeting, which to me falls in line, maybe it's a little down the road for what you're feeling, but the reality is the September TAC meeting and executive board meetings, they will officially bless what we did at the retreat. Right. So, I mean, it's not until middle of September can I give you with full certainty what our future is. So to me, your October meeting's right around the corner.
Oh, I see.
You can participate in both those meetings, come listen in, hear what's going on. But at your October meeting, we can circle back here and say, all right, again, it is Sundog Connector. Daniel and I are now working with the TAC and the scope and, start bombarding us with your input. What are you seeing? What are you liking, not liking? And we begin to shape the scope at that point.
Thank you.
So, Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Sorry to step out
No,
a
it's all
little bit
good.
early, but
Definitely great having you here.
you can plan on me attending more.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Oh, you enjoyed yourself? Is that what you're trying to say?
The company's great. You'll take care and we'll talk later.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
So anything else
I got that.
first? So our October 25th, and we hope to see you at the retreat.
Still up. It's 12 o'clock at the resort.
Yes.
And what was the time on August the 11th?
Oh, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Prescott Resort. And Allison will be sending out emails, reminders about the agenda, the location, and then dietary restrictions. We'll be doing like a lunch buffet, but if there's additional restrictions that anyone has, Allison will be collecting them.
I want to thank y'all for moving this meeting a little earlier so we could do all this before that one, because I feel much more prepared to just,
Yes.
you know, with a little more
We-
time
we
to
kinda
think.
thought-
and-
Yes.
That's what we kind
absolutely.
of thought about.
Kudos to the staff.
Yeah, thank you
And
very
and
much.
thank all of you who attended by Zoom.
And there's also people watching via YouTube and stuff that we aren't seeing.
Whichever.
Yeah, so,
And
Yeah.
Jamie, when you brought that up, I completely forgot. And about halfway through the meeting, I looked up and realized there were more
yeah.
people participating than I realized. I didn't think about it, but.
Thank you, everyone,
yeah,
for
thank
being
you.
there.